My name is Defa, and my personal project is digital horse float design. The goal is to create a 3D digital model of a horse float. A horse float is what is referred to as transportation for horses. The global context that I use is scientific and technological innovation with a strand of how humans use their understanding of scientific principles. The reason I choose this project is because of how I like to ride horses. It's my hobby. And once in a while, I would need to rent a horse float to transport my horses. And if I do it if I rent every time I would need it, it would stack up and eventually become expensive in the long run. And creating a model is the first step to solving this issue. My model is unique in a way that it serves multiple purpose, which I'll show you in a bit. But for now, what I'm trying to say is that if this model would come to real life, if I actually make it, then the float would be able to save me money in the long run. And then maybe I could rent it to others in the community with a lower price for a higher quality. One of the first things I did for the project was creating a proposal to propose my idea. The proposal included, among other things, my criteria of success and my timeline, both of which would guide me down the line throughout this project.
The first step for my taking action was learning how to use SketchUp. I tried watching YouTube videos and read a book, but nothing really got through. I got the gist of making lines and faces through my own testing, so I started making the model. I thought that I could just add slowly as I go, but it didn't go that way. I felt like I couldn't continue with that model because I didn't think of the big picture. In hindsight, I could have just fixed it, but I didn't know how at the time. So I abandoned it and decided to try again when I'm more prepared. What I'm showing you guys is that model. I measured 2 buses throughout the project. A police bus, which I measured shortly after abandoning the first model, and a Cikal bus near the end of the project for extra references. I also interviewed an expert on 3D designing, Mr. Mufli. He taught me how to use SketchUp and all the tools in it, and how to use them effectively and some tips and tricks. I also regularly conversed with equestrian experts to ask for advice and feedback on aspects such as the dimensions and features that would be needed in the float. My design is different from traditional horse floats because of multiple features. First of all, my float is based off of a bus. It's supposed to be a bus modified to transport horses so that it can run on its own, whereas a traditional float is a separate compartment and is pulled by a car. The float has 2 main features, the lodgings and the horse section. The lodgings consist of a bed, a compartment to store clothes, and a table specifically made to store equestrian equipment. The horses section includes of a pole used to tie the horses to, and a window to let the sunlight in or to let air in. Other features include the cooking station and the driver's area. The driver's area is the hardest section in my whole project, and it took around 60 or even 70% of the time I spent designing. This is because of how the driver's section requires more dynamic shapes and lines. To add to that, the section also requires more accurate dimensions, whereas the rest can more or less be estimated. 2 of the most difficult parts of the design are the front window and the dashboard. The front window was difficult because it was hard to recreate the arc of a bus. At some parts, the arc is significant, but then it transitions into a more subtle arc. I couldn't find a way to recreate that effect smoothly on 3D, so I overcame the obstacle by just using a normal arc and use what I can get. The dashboard, on the other hand, is similar to this, but way worse. The shape of dashboards are abstract and has a slope on 2 axes. One slope going on the x-axis and another on the y-axis. I don't have the slightest clue on how to do that on SketchUp. Creating slopes on SketchUp is only possible for 1 axis, not for 2. And to make it worse, dashboard have these hills. What I mean by that is that the slope isn't constant. And I don't think that SketchUp is able to make faces on these abstract or weird shapes. So, after failing multiple times, I cast away my perfectionistic ego and just settled for a simplified one-axis slope. To conclude, I would say that I implemented and improved some of my IB learner profiles throughout the project. Choosing this very project meant that I needed to be a strong risk taker. I had bare minimum knowledge of horse floats and no designing skills whatsoever. I was signing up for a project which I am very ill prepared for. I had to research and acquire new information to compensate my lack of knowledge. In doing so, I believe that I was being an inquirer. Being a thinker, I experimented with various tools, approaches, and techniques to slowly create the model. Inevitably, I would stumble across mistakes and issues. I had to be reflective and learn from my mistakes, striving to improve my skills and expand my knowledge. These traits allow me to become a better learner. They give me a reminder of what kind of person I need to be in order to achieve my goals. Thank you for watching.